Okay. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Asheville. We're glad you're here, congregant or visitor. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, whomever you love, you are welcome in our faith community. If you're visiting here in the sanctuary, welcome. If you're visiting online and want to learn more about us, click on the link in the chat box. While you're in the chat, we invite you to introduce yourself and tell us from where you are watching. We're glad you're here. Good morning. I'm Karen Dill. I'm a member of the UUCA Board of Trustees. I have the honor of welcoming you to our service today, and in about 30 minutes, finally and officially welcoming springtime in the mountains with all of you. We're still wearing sweaters. I'm so grateful to be back in this building. This mountain quilt always reminds me that I'm home. My home has always been here in the mountains. I've traveled, I've lived many places as an adult, but I was born and raised here. As my daddy used to like to say, our family settled and always lived in the shadow of Coal Mountain in Haywood County, and that was long before the movie made it popular. That mountain was our anchor, and it was also our weather channel. You could watch snow or rain coming across that ridge, and you could always make accurate weather predictions. You could watch the change of seasons, and for me, the best was the glimpse of spring. Mountains could be trusted. People, not so much. I'm from a long line of stubborn, independent mountain folk who were and still are proud non-joiners, distrustful of most humans, and yet, the magical yet, I'm here, a joiner, a participant, trusting this congregation and believing against all odds in the connecting power of love. Why is that? I walked past this beautiful building in probably 1972, 73. I was a student then at UNCA. I was on a scholarship, first person in my family to ever leave home and go to college. So homesick. And I love to walk from campus across Merriman and marvel at these beautiful homes in these old neighborhoods. This building was new then, native stone, wood, and it looked as if it belonged right here in the mountains. Was it a church? What kind of church was it? There was no steeple. Who were the people who attended? Surely they were much smarter and worldly than I was at 17 years old. So many questions I had, but I was too insecure and a little intimidated to walk through the door, not sure if I'd be welcomed. And yet, there's that magical yet. Some 50 years later, I did walk through the doors, and here I am. I didn't think much about this building with the beautiful stones for 50 years until I moved back to Asheville. I read a little about the Unitarian Universalist. I knew I agreed with their beliefs, but it was when I finally walked through the doors and made that leap of faith that I start to learn about this faith. The orientation classes that I took were invaluable. It's called UU 101. I joined a covenant group. I devoured the Soul Matters packets. I read and discussed books about racial justice with other UUs. I joined the Board of Trustees, having absolutely no idea what I was doing, and yet I was welcomed, and I am learning. I have learned that UUCA not only had a place for all those with that long history and knowledge of UU traditions, but it also had a place for me. I learned that UUCA was a place to grow, to think, to question, to struggle, and to make a real difference. And it has become a home, an anchor, just like the Coal Mountain of my childhood. So as we return to this beautiful building and reconnect with each other, in person or on Zoom, May we all continue to share our time, our talents, and our resources. May we rejoice together in the rebirth of mountains and spring. May we pledge to continue the good works in this faith and be a welcoming beacon in this community, an open door to a curious 17-year-old or a 71-year-old. And may this be our home for many springs to come. Thank you. And now, Lea Morris invites us to bring open hearts as we begin this time of worship and ask, what will you make?
Good morning, congregation of Asheville. My name is Lea Morris, and it's a pleasure to be here with you and with Reverend Kathy and with Leslie. Thank you so much for the invitation and the opportunity to share with you today. At the start of any given day, there is mystery available. There is a game waiting for an open heart to say yes. Here I am, I'll play. And if we're smart, we'll listen to the way, and all the misery that held us down, we'll let it fade, let it be wiped out by the simple spark of a life that's waiting to be made, that's waiting to be made. This day, what will you keep? What will you change? What will you see? What will you believe? What will you make of your dreams? Will you keep sleeping? Or will you awaken and decide what you make? Of any given day, there is history and poetry. There is a play, but you're not in the audience. You are the star. So get out there and say what you will make. This day, what will you keep? What will you change? What will you see? And what will you believe? What will you make of your dreams? Will you keep sleeping, or will you awaken and decide what you will make of this day? What will you keep? What will you change? What will you see? What will you believe? What will you make of your dreams? Will you keep sleeping, or will you awaken and decide what you will make?
Good morning. I'm Jane Bramham, this morning's worship associate. Lea is actually in Germany, and that is the reason that we are being joined by video with her, and she will be coming back to you several times with guests during today's service. I've been thinking about this month's theme of renewing faith in kind of the same way I think about refinishing a piece of beautiful wood furniture that's been covered with multiple layers of paint. And I want to bring words from four wise women who may both capture your discomfort with the word faith and begin to reveal that our concept of faith may be the glitzy paint that's on the top layer and not the gorgeous pattern of the grain of the wood as the truer meaning of the word. So from Kathleen Norris, who penned a new dictionary of the language of faith, Mary Gordon, Barnard professor and writer, Doris Betts, North Carolina novelist, and Buddhist meditation teacher Sharon Salzberg, we have these words about faith. Norris says she has come to know that faith is best thought of as a verb, not a thing that you either have or don't. The relentlessly cheerful and positive language about faith that I associate with the strong-arm tactics of evangelism, she says, fails to take ambiguity into account. And my new understanding of faith is as energy itself, fluid, ever-moving, and yet constant. Doris Betts asserts that faith is not synonymous with certainty, but is the decision to keep your eyes open. While Gordon writes, the ability to question, the ability to keep a skeptical position is absolutely central to my understanding of myself and my understanding of myself as a religious person. It's very important to experience doubt. I think faith without doubt is just either nostalgia or a kind of addiction, and I'm not interested in that. Salzberg says faith is like a journey, an unfolding of the heart that's based on love for ourselves and being able to reach out to others and let others reach out to us. The essence of faith is connection. So now, let us light the chalice of our faith with words from the Reverend Dr. Rebecca Savage. We light our flaming chalice each week with a simple spark to make holy our time together. May this flame, may our highest intentions be refreshed. With this flame, may we remember who we are and whose we are. With this flame, may our faith be renewed and reignited to guide this journey. May it be so. Amen. Now let us sing together hymn number 123, Spirit of Life.
Went for a long walk. They walked across a large meadow. They walked along in the woods. They walked along the river. At last, they went back home to Toad's house. "Oh, Drip," said Toad, "not only do my feet hurt, but I have lost one of the buttons on my jacket." "Don't worry," said Frog. "We will go back to all the places where we walked We will soon find your button. They walked back to the large meadow. They began to look for the button in the tall grass. Here is your button, cried Frog. That is not my button, said Toad. That button's black and my button was white. Toad put the black button in his pocket. A sparrow flew down. Excuse me, said the sparrow. Did you lose a button? I found one. That is not my button, said Toad. That button has 2 holes and my button had 4. Toad put the button with 2 holes in his pocket. They went back to the woods, looked on the dark paths. Here is your button, said Frog. That is not my button, cried Toad. That button is small and my button was big. Toad put the small button in his pocket. A raccoon came from behind a tree. I heard that you were looking for a button, he said. Here's one that I've just found. That is not my button, wailed Toad. That button's square and my button was round. Toad put the square button in his pocket. Frog and Toad went back to the river. They looked for the button in the mud. Here is your button, said Frog. That is not my button, shouted Toad. That button's thin and my button was thick. Toad put the thin button in his pocket. He was very angry. He jumped up and down and screamed, The whole world is covered with buttons and not one of them is mine. Toad ran home and slammed the door. There on the floor, he saw his white, 4-holed, big, round, thick button. Oh, said Toad. It was here all the time. What a lot of trouble I have made for Frog. Toad took all of the buttons out of his pocket. He took his sewing box down from the shelf. Toad sewed the buttons all over his jacket. The next day, Toad gave his jacket to Frog. Frog thought that was beautiful. He put it on and jumped for joy. None of the buttons fell off. Toad had sewed them on very well.
That was some great reading, Lucia.
Way to go, kid.
This is a story called A Lost Button from the book Frog and Toad Are Friends. What do you think this story is about?
Toad losing buttons and finding buttons.
Losing buttons and finding buttons. What do you think, Jacob?
I think it's a metaphor that one shouldn't just...
And I think it's about buttons.
I think you're right. Go ahead again, Jacob.
I think it's a metaphor that you should just be happy with what you find and at least thank the people for trying to help you.
That's a really great reminder. That's true. But Toad was losing his temper the whole time, and he never stopped to thank anybody until the end. And that's, for me, one of the things this reminds me of is that a great story can be about a lot of different things. For me, the story is about being on a journey to find something very specific. Like he really thought he wanted to find his lost button, and that was the most important thing to him. And along the way, he found other things that he realized were a special and different gift than he had expected at all. And then he still found the thing he was looking for, but he also found something beautiful that he could share with his friend. So, what a really great story with great reading by Lucia and help by Jacob. We hope that you enjoyed A Lost Button and that you heard something special in the story for you too. Say bye.
Bye.
Adios.
Adios, mis amigos.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Lea found us some pretty special guests, didn't she? I love Button. Some of you know about that. And I love that story. And for me, it's, a reminder of that little girl I was and still am that wants everything to match. Doesn't really have to. So we take a little pause now. Whether you're on a mountain hike or on a faith journey, you need pauses for refreshment to prevent exhaustion of body or spirit. It is spring, so let's rest in a garden with words by Julia Cameron followed by a time of silence. There is no one flower that cancels out the need for another. Each bloom has its unique and special and irreplaceable beauty. Let our gardening hands be gentle ones. Let us not root out each other's ideas before they have time to bloom. Let us bear with the process of growth, dormancy, fruition, and reseeding. Let us never be hasty to judge and reckless in our urgency to force unnatural growth. Let there be always a place for the artist toddler to try, to falter, to fail, to try again. A creative failure may be the compost that nourishes next season's creative success. Remember, we are in this for the long haul, for the ripening and the harvest. We come to the time for acknowledging our joys and sorrows with our candle lighting ritual. Those in the sanctuary are invited to come forward to light a candle. If you're online, you may write any joys or concerns that you have to share in with the congregation in the chat box. We lit a candle in honor of Reverend Kathy's mother, Julianne Harrington, as she celebrates her 99th birthday today. If you have shared a joy, know this community rejoices with you. If you have shared a sorrow, know that you are held in love and care by this community. My heart-mind was captured in a recent breakout session discussion about circles when someone shared, and I share with her permission, her vision about the value of circles. She described that we are all in a circle holding hands, and we just let go of a hand and take another person's hand, and we can widen our circle. I was struck by the phrase, let go. All we have to do is let go, and we can grow. It felt like the core of a loving community, an intentional act that simultaneously releases and increases. If we are holding on and tightly attached to a vision of a past that can't be, or if we're clinging to a need to feel exceptional, moving on demands that we make the decision. Deciding to let go and reaching out is faith. Now, take a breath, exhale, and we're ready to be on our way with Lea.
On my way, oh, I'm on my way. Many miles I march or fly, nature's call to obey. If I roam or I stand still, I must follow Spirit's will, ever on my way. Oh, I'm on my way. On my way. Oh, I'm on my way. Many miles I march or fly, nature's call to obey. If I roam or I stand still, I must follow Spirit's will, ever on my way. Oh, I'm on my way. On our way. Oh, we're on our way. One by one, following the sun as we march and we pray. On this road to the promised land, the journey home is who I am, ever on my way. I am on my way. On our way. Oh, we're on our way. One by one, following the sun as we work and we pray. On this road to the promised land, the journey home is who I am, ever on my way. Oh, I'm on my way. We are on our way. Lord, guide us on our way. So I want to talk today about migration, about pilgrimage. So I'm wondering how many migratory species you can think of in the next few seconds. I'll be honest, I came up with some types of birds and monarch butterflies. It's kind of what I had. So I did the natural thing for any person who wants to know more about the world we live in. I wish I could say I went outside. I Googled it.
And here's a brief list that I came up with of migratory species. The Canada goose, hummingbird, Arctic terns, not terns, but terns, monarch butterflies, dragonflies, caribou, elephant seals, salmon, and blue whales. And that's just a tiny overview of our cousins here on Earth who are making a regular pilgrimage from one place to another, either in search of more hospitable habitat or looking for love. As the case may be, they're following their survival instincts. And so I'm wondering to what extent you see us, human beings, as a migratory species. I've heard a lot of friends talk about their pilgrimage on the Santiago de Compostela, and it's possible that I'm mispronouncing that, but it's a pathway in Spain where many pilgrims walk miles, hundreds of miles, to a certain destination. There's a similar space in Japan. One could think of the Appalachian Trail as a pilgrimage. I still intend to march at least that one, if not the other two. But all throughout our history and across cultures and continents, there are intentional pilgrim journeys. Obviously, there's the opportunity to make Hajj for Muslim neighbors who journey to Mecca, to the place where their prophet Muhammad was born. So certainly we do make pilgrimages. Do those count as migrations? I mean, we do have our elders, or snowbirds as they're often referred to, who will establish homes in southern climates or drive their RVs to Florida for the winter months. And I'll be honest, when that opportunity is available to me, I certainly am one who would hibernate if I could, and I would love to be a snowbird. You know, follow the sun, follow the sun. That's how those words wound up in that song that we sang earlier. But I think that even apart from the pilgrimages that we might take for a limited time, or apart from the intention to follow the sun, we could also be called a migratory species in the sense that we are ideally constantly moving, constantly in search of our home, of our next best place to be. Self to be. We human beings are similar to our other earthly relatives, and that we do have that instinctive calling. One might say we have that genetic material from our ancestors, that history that is a part of who we are. But what we actually outpicture is culture. We have our languages, our religions, our beliefs and customs that we take on from our ancestors, from past generations. And we follow those patterns where they serve us. Ideally, where they do not serve us, we consider the possibility of letting them go. And certainly the migratory species of the world are making adjustments as our world is changing for them, as their habitats are shrinking, are becoming less available, are changing in ways that none of us could have predicted, or in ways certainly that are being predicted and that none of us desire to see. It's a slightly different experience for us. Our animal cousins are following their instincts. We have the responsibility to decide whether what our ancestors programmed in us is working, whether we want to continue to walk that same path, or whether we want to change it up and do something that surprises all of us. A perfect case in point. I was thinking about my parents, my mother and father, who never in their lives had the opportunity to sit down and break bread with a family with two moms, or two dads, or a mother and a father and a non-binary parent. It just wasn't available to them. In my generation, As I continue my journey forward, I do have the opportunity to sup, to join, to consider myself friends with people who may look like I do, who may love like I do, who may worship and believe like I do, but who may not. That is an indication of how our journey does not stop with the information that we got from our parents, that we are more than just the genetic coding and the cultural information that we inherit from the generations before. And by the same token, our migration is not just about looking for suitable habitat and looking for love. We are on a constant migration of exploring and expressing who we are. Maybe one could say that is the pursuit of love. That is the ultimate pursuit of love of self, love of others, recognizing that we all deserve a place in this constant formation forward. Not exalting one color pattern over the other, one gender, or even one species over the other, but recognizing that we are all traveling forward to the most suitable place for us all, to a world that works for all of our human and global family. We also have a responsibility to consider not just the past and not just our present moment, but future generations. To recognize that how we walk now will impact our children, our neighbors' children, those who are to come. In their youth, my parents never heard the words global warming. People knew that the weather changes, but there was no real understanding that entire climate could change. That we little old us, could impact the face of our planet. That idea was just beginning to be considered. We know in this present moment, we have the power of information that can help us to navigate forward on our journey as we migrate towards that more suitable habitat, towards love. Not just love for ourselves, love for those who are to come, those who are following in our footsteps, those maybe who are on a different place in the formation forward. In a sense, I believe that all of life is a migration. Not just human life and not just those migratory species. Life is a journey from where we are to where we're going. Now, in the case of blue whales, they're swimming north and south in the Pacific Ocean looking for ideal places to mate and to live and to sing to one another and to listen. Is that very different from what we're doing as human beings? We're on a journey and we get to decide. To some extent, we do so by instinct, and to some extent, we follow our cultural patterns, we follow the norms that have been given to us, and we look forward to the generations who are to come, and we navigate thus. Ideally, always flexible and open to changing our flight patterns when necessary, when we recognize that what we've been doing isn't working, and we want to try a new step. We want to try something different. We want to consider a different destination. But in the process of recognizing that we have a destination, it's important for us to stand where we are and see each step as central to the journey forward. A truly mindful traveler doesn't only think of their origin or their destination. They recognize that each step along the journey is an integral part of what they are learning in the becoming, in the movement forward. So we have what you might call an advantage over the other species on the planet is that when we migrate, we can do so intentionally, not just instinctively, and not just following the footsteps of our parents and their parents and past generations. We get to choose the direction that works for us, that we truly believe will be of benefit to the most. For the whole of humankind, for the whole of animal and plant kind, for the sake of life on our planet. We get to choose how we journey forward. Like the other critters on the earth, don't stay put. Even worms and ants will relocate their colonies when they see that something in their space isn't working. They don't fly south or slither or crawl south or north, but they make adjustments when that becomes necessary, when they see that that is a necessary choice for their survival and well-being. Likewise, we are not stuck where we are in this moment. We have the opportunity to focus in this moment on what we believe the next best step will be. But we are, make no mistake, migratory. We are constantly on a path. The potential is to stand still and walk in place, or to walk backwards, certainly. But the ideal, at least in my opinion, is to dream, envision, and constantly be moving forward to a way of living in the world that is most beneficial to the most of us. We do so by following our instinct to love. And we are always, as we journey, within the cycle and the circle of the seasons and the spinning of this earth, always moving, ideally always moving forward in our formation. I got the opportunity to talk a bit with Reverend Kathy and with Les about your visions for the future. What is to come for UU Asheville? It's exciting. It's really a wonderful thing. What I've heard a lot from them, from you, is that you have this beautiful space. You have the potential to build out and create opportunities for more sharing, more gathering. And I'm excited to hear over the years, over the time to come, what and how you make this space true to your vision. But I also heard from Reverend Kathy that a lot of people are focused on this step, on this now, this moment of coming back together, seeing each other in person again, singing together, hugging, hearing your children and your loved ones raising their voices together in the same space. And there is no more important step on any journey than the next one, the literal, immediate next step. And so I want to celebrate your vision, your heritage that I understand you spoke about recently, that you've heard a lot about your roots and where you come from, and you've got all this potential for the future. But recognizing, appreciating, and honoring this step, this moment, is a wisdom that I appreciate as I often dream big and forward, and sometimes get a little mired in thoughts of the past. I appreciate the reminder from you and from your congregation that this is where it's at, that on my overarching migration through life, that this moment, this flap of my wings, this step of my feet, this song, this time with you is where I am. It's the only real moment that there is. And so I wrote this song for you with all of those concepts in mind.
If you ask us where we're going, we know love will guide the way. If you ask us where we come from, there'll be plenty more to say. face to face. We're gonna use our space for gathering, make more magic in this place. Oh, we have so much to build on, and we're going to raise the bar. But right now, right here is where we are. It's where we are, where we are. There's a little mountainside underneath the stars. Each day is a beginning and the future isn't far. But right now, right here is where we are. Where we are, where we are. There's a little mountainside underneath the stars. Oh, there has so much to build on, and we're going to raise the bar. But right now, right here is where we are. Oh, right now, right here is where we are. Oh, right now, right here is where we are. Blessings on you, you congregation of Asheville, as you continue on your migratory journey.
So let's stand and sing about Building a New Way, hymn number 1017 in the Teal hymnal. As we come to the work of the congregation, remind you that the announcement slides which ran at the beginning of the service can also be found in Thursday's weekly e-news. A gentle reminder that it is time to make any changes to your annual giving form. As you may have noticed coming in, there is a blood drive taking place now in Sandburg Hall until 3 this afternoon. They tell me they do still have openings for walk-ins if you want to make that decision today. The Create and Connect circles will resume next Sunday from 12:30 to 1:30 in Sandburg Hall. There will not be a Zoom connection for conversation after today's service. Our community plate recipient this month is HERS, As a medical oncologist, I know the rarity of early diagnosis of ovarian cancer and the poor outcomes for women of color even when diagnosed early. Asheville's HERS educates, advocates, and navigates for minority women through their journey with ovarian cancer and within the medical system. Thank you for providing funding towards remediating the discrepancies in ovarian cancer outcome. We'll now take our offering with the thank yous that every journey requires provision and skills. We are grateful for your presence and your talents. Every journey has expenses, and we are thankful for your financial support. Gracias a ustedes por sus regalos. Stay with us after the closing song for Lea's postlude and another chance to sing together, Everything is Possible. I close with gratitude to the Racial Justice Advisory Council for creating a space for us to talk about where we are right now, and to the transition team for opening broad paths for taking our next step forward, and to each and every one of you for being a companion on our communal journey. When we feel the power of each other's faith, then our hearts are in a holy place. May it be so. Now, please rise and body or spirit as we sing our closing song, and join me in opening your hands and your hearts. Envision being guided by the light to a home that is our vision of a beloved community. And when the second time around to sing comes, think about taking, in whatever direction you have space for at home or in the pew, one step, a first step on the way to that home.
thank you all again for your hospitality and the opportunity to share. I look forward to the chance to get together in person and to see your beautiful space and your beautiful faces. In the meantime, I hope you'll sing this final song with me. It's called Everything is Possible. It's a big proclamation, but it's worth living into. Everything is possible, this I know, this I know, this I know. Everything is possible, this I know. I'm bountiful and free, bountiful and free, where I'm supposed to be. Everything is possible, this I know. I'm bountiful and free. Everything is possible, this I know. This I know, this I know. Everything is possible, this I know. I'm bountiful and free, bountiful and free, where I'm supposed to be. Everything is possible, this I know. I'm bountiful and free. Everything is possible, this I know. This I know, this I know. Everything is possible, this I know. Is bountiful and free, bountiful and free, where I'm supposed to be. Everything is possible, this I know. I'm bountiful and free. Everything is possible, this I know. Is possible, I know. Everything I know is bountiful and free, bounty where I'm supposed to be. Everything I know, I'm bountiful and free. Everything I know is possible. I know. Everything I know is bountiful and free. Bountiful.